Hello there, and welcome back to the channel. Mad Mike here, and today we're going to be going over something that it's kind of been brewing in Hollywood, both behind the scenes and publicly, for a while now. But it's the studios and major directors' distaste with Netflix, and specifically Netflix original films or distributed property winning Academy Awards. Here's the thing is that Hollywood shouldn't be pretty recently, probably I think last year is when you started hearing a lot of it at the 2018 Academy Awards. Was that there were a lot of directors. Spielberg actually was one of the major ones, but there were others among them that did not think that Netflix or anything that was put up by a streaming service should be eligible to win an Academy Award because it was not premiered in theaters or it did not receive a wider release. Now, there's several problems with the logic of that statement, but let's just go over some things. So, Mudbound was a film that was released in 2018 on Netflix. It was nominated for 4 Oscars. It was not nominated for Best Picture, and that comes in later as an important thing. But it was nominated for 4 Oscars. It did not win any Oscars. But the thing is that was when people started coming out from Hollywood specifically and saying that, they shouldn't allow movies from streaming services to be at the Oscars in the thought that, it's a lesser medium, it's less than a theater. But here's the thing, and I don't know if they felt as threatened by this film as they did others, as they have now with some others. That have been coming out recently that are being nominated. But here's the thing: is that if you look at it from the social justicey type of angle, films like Mudbound kind of they have all the check marks for what the ideological Hollywood tends to like to put in their films. It's a film. It's very much in the same vein as a film like 12 Years a Slave, which did win many Oscars. And really, it's a film about racism in the South, and it's a period piece and stuff like that. So it reflects a lot of what they tend to look for in movies that receive multiple Oscar nods, which, logically, it should be in there, but people still had a problem with it. Now, that movie didn't win, and of course, it was kind of forgotten about, like most Oscar films are, unless they're ones that are, big budget that win, like, visual awards and stuff like that. But that one was kind of forgotten about, and really not a lot of people remember it because, again, nobody really watches the Oscars anymore. I already did a video about that. But then you also have at that same Oscars, you have another film from Netflix that was nominated and won. And nobody really seemed to have any kind of an issue with that. Now, this film was called Icarus, and it was a documentary. I've actually seen Icarus. It's a really good documentary. It's on Netflix. Watch it because it's incredibly entertaining, and it has to do with the Russian doping scandal with the Olympics and a bunch of other stuff. And the guy who did it, last name was Fogel. For some reason, I can't remember his first name, but he did a very good job, and the plot and everything of the documentary and the way it's filmed and all that stuff, it is an amazing documentary. It is not full of the geopolitical landscape like a Michael Moore film or something like that, where it's just all liberal point of view. It's a straightforward documentary about the guy who made it, Fogel, and another person who was the head of the Russian anti-doping labs for the Olympics. And you really should watch that. It's a very good documentary. But it won. And here's the thing. I don't remember hearing a lot about Icarus, about people saying, Icarus shouldn't win because it's from Netflix. And it was really only nominated for one thing. It was nominated for the documentary. And that's kind of, I think, the reason why people weren't so pissed about it, is that they could let that one go. They could let that little one go because they're like, okay, it came out on the streaming service. It's a documentary. People aren't going to remember it that much in the future. So it's one of those films that they could kind of sweep it under the rug almost. Especially since it was just a documentary and they could leave it alone. It wasn't a Michael Moore film like they were going to promote for eternity and stuff like that. Ironically, actually, Michael Moore's recent film 11/9 won at the Razzies, which is hilarious to me. But let's just go beyond that. And this year we have another one that's coming up for Netflix, and that is Roma. Now, this one is receiving a lot of kickback from directors. Again, Steven Spielberg has come out and thrown shade on this film, and I haven't seen Roma, so I can't judge it as a film. I do know the basic plot is it's directed by a man from Mexico, and it's supposed to be about a coming of age story from people in I believe Mexico City. But here's the thing. It's been nominated for 10 Oscars, including Best Picture. Now, that is the big one there, is Best Picture. And studios do not want to see that. They don't want to see a Netflix movie winning Best Picture. That is like their worst nightmare. And they'll use whatever means they can. They'll use their stable of directors. They'll use whoever they want, and they'll try and get this movie as down as they can. And here's the thing about studios is that most of the major studios in Hollywood have been around since the 30s. You have 20th Century Fox, which obviously it's getting bought out, but Fox is still a company. But you had 20th Century Fox, you have Disney, you have Universal Pictures, you have Paramount, and a few other ones, MGM, which isn't as big as it used to be, obviously. You also have Columbia TriStar and a few other ones that are sprinkled in there. But the major studios really haven't changed a whole lot since that time, and they've always kind of remained giants of the industry. Now, here's the thing: is when you have films that are being nominated that are not from a traditional studio, like a Netflix or an Amazon Prime or a Hulu or something like that. It's the same battle they had with television, once upon a time ago. The idea that if you could stay at home and watch a screen, why would you go to a movie? And that was kind of how film companies were back then when it remained a television. That's why so many film corporations started buying into television. Obviously, Fox did it better than others, but there's a large majority of film companies do own some kind of a television branch. But that's the thing, is that Netflix is basically forcing these studios to adapt, because the idea of now again you can watch a Hollywood caliber film from your couch by paying $10 a month to a streaming service. And again, it's the same thing with television too, because Netflix isn't just at war with Hollywood, they're at war with television as well. Well, Hollywood television. Because it's the same idea, is that you could sit down on a Netflix. It's not like an old television show where you have to wait a week to see what happens or blah 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 until the season's over. They just give you the whole season. You can binge watch it in an afternoon, and that's a big advantage that Netflix has over network TV. If you want to watch, and a lot of people don't watch the regular season of some television shows because they're waiting for it to come out on Netflix, and they can just watch the whole thing at once. They don't have to wait. And that's what a lot of people will do. I know plenty of people that do that, especially with shows that they have on there. I remember Walking Dead, when that was coming out regularly, they would wait until the entire season was out, and then like a couple months later it would come out on Netflix, and then they just binge watch the series on Netflix instead of waiting week by week by week to watch it on television. But the thing is that Hollywood is threatened by Netflix. They are threatened by streaming services in general. That's why a lot of major networks, Disney, CBS is doing it now, and they're trying to invest in these streaming services as much as they can, because if they don't, then they know they're going to be left in the dust. But Netflix is autonomous from them. Netflix is kind of on its own. And Netflix is basically on the level with a lot of major Hollywood studios right now. They're on the level, obviously not with Disney, maybe not with 20th Century Fox before the buyout, but they're probably on level with stuff like Universal and Paramount. So you have this streaming service that has basically risen to the level of a Hollywood studio, and they do not like that. They feel very threatened by that. And it's the idea that if they start winning legitimate awards, then they're going to become legitimate. And that's the last thing that Hollywood wants. That's the last thing that Hollywood directors want. That's the last thing that Hollywood studios want. I shouldn't say directors, but maybe some stable directors, the older ones in some cases, don't like that idea, even though Netflix would happily pay them to do a series or a film. They still don't like that idea, especially if they have strong ties to a studio like Spielberg. But the studios definitely don't like it. But here's the thing, and again, these films have to have merit, or they should have merit to win. I've already gone over my feelings on the Oscars, which I think is just a big old ideological circle jerk. But at the same time, if you're gonna follow their rules, quote unquote, if you're gonna play their game, and you're gonna have films that are in there, then why does it matter what platform that film comes out on, as long as the film is good from their perspective, if they're voting on it? Again, I'm playing devil's advocate here. I'm not saying that necessarily these films are good, but I'm saying if you're playing by their rules and they simply just don't like you, then that's discrimination on a studio level. Because if you're playing by their rules and you're putting out a quality, what they believe to be a quality film, and you're submitting it to them and it's getting nominated for awards, and the only reason it doesn't win is because people don't like the studio that made the film, then I'm sorry, you're not even playing by your own rules at that point. That is ridiculous. And again, I'm not saying that I haven't seen Roma. I haven't seen Mudbound. I have the only one I can vouch for really is Icarus. I thought that was an amazing film. But if Hollywood ideologues are going to play the game that they play, and they're going to be hypocrites about it, people are going to call them out for it. And if they shut these movies down, let's say this movie Roma gets nominated for 10 Oscars, doesn't win one of them against the open field that it has right now, people are going to start to question that, because if a movie is nominated for 10 Oscars, you expect it to win at least one or two of them. So it's going to be interesting. I think I'm not going to watch the Oscars obviously, but after tonight, I think I'll keep an eye on what's going on that front, and just see, like, okay, Monday morning, who won what, and did Roma pick anything up? But this is Hollywood's worst nightmare, and this is ultimately a good thing for film, because if you have competition like that, especially competition that puts out decent stuff. I know Netflix has put out some questionable things in the past, but some of their major shows are still good. I enjoyed most of the Marvel Netflix series. Stranger Things is a good show. They put out some decent movies. The Cloverfield Paradox I thought was actually pretty good, and among other things. But Netflix is a pretty popular medium, and they're going to continue to be a popular medium, regardless of what they have there. But Hollywood is going to try and handicap them. They're going to try and take them out of the picture, and eventually they'll just fade into obscurity. That's their whole idea. But that's my opinion of how this situation is playing out right now, and how it's developed over the last year and a half or so. I don't know. How do you feel about? Have you seen either Mudbound or Roma? And do you think that they're films that should be nominated for what they've been nominated for? And how do you feel about the way that Hollywood tends to treat Netflix as a brand? Put that in. Whatever your thoughts are, just put them in the comments. Hit the like button and hit the bell for notifications. Don't forget to subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?